The NFL trade deadline is just a couple hours away, and the trade rumors surrounding the New York Football Giants are heating up. We've got reports from ESPN. We've got reports from Josina Anderson about Saquon Barkley and a couple more players on this team. So I'll tell you about all the rumors, and then we're going to talk about a couple players that I think could be on the move if the opportunity presents itself. Let's go to what Jordan Raanan of ESPN, Giants beat reporter, said. Quote, the Giants are 2-6 and have a lot of interest in their roster, according to a source. Leonard Williams was the name that was getting the most buzz, and then Leonard Williams eventually got traded. But a lot of interest in the roster means there's interest outside of just Leonard Williams. And let's start with the guy that a lot of teams are calling about, and that is Saquon Barkley. According to reports, multiple teams have called the New York Giants about a trade for Saquon Barkley, but the Giants, they are not having it. They are shutting it all down, saying, we are not going to move Saquon Barkley. So this is my thing. I'm okay if you aren't going to trade Saquon Barkley. I don't agree necessarily with the thought process unless a couple of stars align. Let me break it down to you. If you aren't going to trade him, so that means you're going to re-sign him, right? Because he is on a one-year deal. He is set to hit free agency. And if you don't plan to bring him back, you should trade him. But since the Giants are not trading him, that means they are going to re-sign him, right? Wrong. The Giants are not going to give Saquon Barkley a lucrative long-term extension. Could they franchise tag him again this offseason? Sure, that's possible. But I do not see a world where Saquon is happy with the average annual value. Is that Saquon is happy with the average, the exact guaranteed money, on a long-term deal. I don't see those two sides bridging the gap, which tells me it's unsure if Saquon will be a long-term player here, and the Giants need to listen to offers because of that. If you don't have any idea or any thought or want to extend him long-term, you need to at least listen to offers. I hope they are doing that because I don't think a long-term deal is going to get done for the reasons that we said. The Giants were hesitant to give Saquon a long-term deal because they did not think that he had proven that he could be a durable back. Well, he missed 3 more games this season, proving your theory correct. Saquon Barkley is great. He's one of the best football players in the National Football League. He's the number 1 weapon on this team. He's the only fuel in this tank of the Giants offense that is non-existent. I know how special of a player Saquon Barkley is. There's a reason I spent my hard-earned money on buying his jersey. I'm a fan of the player. I'm a fan of the person. But more importantly, I'm a fan of the New York Football Giants. And in 2023, it has been proven. Paying running backs long-term, big-time money contracts don't work. Saquon is great, but at the end of the day, he is a running back. Facts are the facts. Let me know what you think on this one. Should the Giants trade Saquon Barkley? It's an interesting topic, and I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I tried to lay them all out for you right now. Type T for trade, type K for keep. And make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel because if the Giants make a move, we make a video. And we are also going to be live on the channel at about noon Eastern time tomorrow with NFL trade deadline coverage. A special here from Chat Sports from yours truly. So subscribe, turn your notifications on, and join us tomorrow for a live coverage of the trade deadline. Let's ride. Another player that I have heard that the Giants are getting calls about is Adoree Jackson, who was on the last year of his contract with the New York Giants. The question you have to ask yourself, is Adoree Jackson a part of your long-term plans? The answer is no. Adoree Jackson is not in the long-term plans for the New York Giants. How do I know that? Because the Giants could have restructured or given Adoree Jackson a contract extension to lower the cap hit for this year and give them more flexibility with the salary cap. They didn't do it. He's coming up on age 30, and he's absolutely having his worst season in the National Football League. Pro Football Focus has ranked Adoree Jackson as the 4th worst corner in the NFL. 112 out of 116. You think the Giants are going to give him a deal after he did that when last year he came off a great year and they didn't give him a deal? No way, Jose. So where could he be traded? What about to the West Coast, the San Francisco 49ers? Reports are coming out that the 49ers are looking to add a cornerback. So I asked Chase Sr., host of the 49ers Report here at Chat Sports, almost 100,000 subscribers, and I said, do you think they will trade for a corner? He said they are absolutely looking and making calls, and he thinks Adoree Jackson is a guy that's on the short list of names that they are trying to inquire about. Look, there's no point of keeping Adoree Jackson. He's almost 30. He's on an expiring deal, and he's playing the worst year of football in his career. If the Giants can get absolutely anything for Adoree Jackson, they should do it. That means more snaps for Deonte Banks. That means more snaps for Cordell Flott. You get the young guys more reps, and you're also getting a pick for a player that you don't think is going to be a part of your long-term plans. What about another player on a short-term deal? Last year of his rookie contract. What about Xavier McKenna? A lot of people have asked me, Yo, Marsh, do you think the Giants should trade Xavier McKenna? I think they should be taking and making calls on every player on this roster outside of Andrew Thomas and outside of Dexter Lawrence. When you're 2-6, you got to do those things. Why Xavier McKenna? Because he's going to be a free agent next year. And the Giants have been reluctant to negotiate with him. And if you can't come to a contract extension, the Giants have one card to play, a franchise tag. And the safety franchise tag cost is $18.2 million per year. I am not paying Xavier McKinney $18 million per year. Joe Schoen even said it. We are not going to negotiate a contract extension with Xavier McKinney in season. That was back prior to the season. But I will say this. I'm not trading Xavier McKinney just to trade him. I like him as a football player. I don't love him. I think he's a good safety. I don't think he's a great safety. And Pro Football Focus, they somewhat agree. I'm not saying PFF is the Bible with their rankings, but they're a neutral party and they watch all the film. So I'm not saying they're perfect. But they have X ranked as the 39th best safety this year. Look, if you can come to a short-term, prove-it deal with Xavier McKinney, yes, you re-sign him. If you come to a long-term deal with manageable money that doesn't absolutely screw over your salary cap, you do it. I don't know if that's going to be possible. I think X is going to look to cash in free agency. We got more news and rumors to talk about, but first, I got to tell you guys about our proud sponsor of today's show, Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the promo code CLNS, and Prize Picks is going to hook you guys up with a $100 deposit match. It's daily fantasy sports made easy, and honestly, it's the only way to play daily fantasy. How do you do it? You create a lineup of 2 to 6 players, and you simply select more or less on their projected stat lines. It's you versus the numbers, not you versus 1,000 other people. For this Sunday's game, I'm going with the game that I think is going to be an extremely high-scoring game. The Dolphins versus the Chiefs. I'm going with more on the passing yards for both quarterbacks. I think it is going to be a shootout between two of the top teams in the AFC. You can get started today by playing daily fantasy with the best in the biz, Prize Picks, by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and using that promo code CLNS. So I talked to somebody and somebody in the know, and they asked me, what do you think about the Giants trading Darius Slayton? He said they have not been making calls on Slayton, but he told me that is a name to keep an eye on. Why? Because Slayton has value across the NFL. But I was like, but didn't the Giants just sign Darius Slayton to a 2-year deal? He was like, they did, but it's really a 1-year deal. The Giants have an opportunity to opt out and have a potential out after this season for Darius Slayton and will only be on the hook for $1.7 million on the dead cap. You get a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick for Darius Slayton, and the Giants should at least entertain it. Not sure if I would pull the trigger on that, but the Giants' wide receiver rotation is out of whack right now. And I want to see the young kids get more snaps. I want to see more Wan'Dale Robinson. I want to see more Jalen Hyatt. I honestly want to see more Isaiah Hodgins. I'm a big fan of him, and I feel like he's kind of been put to the wayside in this wide receiver rotation. Slayton's a good player. I think he could be a big-time or top 3 receiver on a team. I think he's a wide receiver 3 on a contender. So I'm not trading him for a bag of chips. But if the right price is presented, everything can go. If you had to put on your prediction cap, who do you think is most likely to get traded by today's trade deadline? Type 2-6 for Barkley, 2-9 for X, or 86 for Darius Slayton. A trade target and candidate that a lot of people are expecting the Giants to move on from is wide receiver Parris Campbell, who was signed in NFL free agency. Signed a 1-year deal, and let's be honest, it has not worked out. But Parris Campbell is not this bad of a football player. Let's be honest. I'm not so sure Jerry Rice would look good in this offense. They don't score points. They don't pick up a lot of yards. They don't really do what modern offenses in the NFL do right now. So while Parris Campbell has been bad, he's not this bad. But I'm just not sure this is the right place for him at the time. Maybe you get a late round pick swap with another team. Giants trade a 7th in Campbell for a 6th of something along those lines. A trade we've seen time and time again throughout this year. Another player that I've heard maybe the Giants could look to trade is, what about Azeez Olari? You might say, well, Marshall, isn't he on injured reserve? Yes, he is, but you can trade players on IR. Is there any team that could interest Ojulari? I'll say this. Azeez is an extremely, extremely talented individual. When he is healthy, he is one of the best young edge rushers in the NFL. But I said if, when, and but 4 times in that last 30 seconds. Why? Because he's just always hurt. And hurt players stay hurt. He's injury prone. He is special. Look, in 27 games played, he has 13.5 sacks. He's averaging half a sack per game. 65 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and 20 QB hits. He's a special player when he's healthy coming off that edge. Maybe he's healthy next year, but maybe there's a team out there that'll be willing to take the chance on him, maybe as an insurance policy going forward when he comes back from IR for the final run in the NFL playoffs. Would hate to see Ojulari go, but sometimes that's just how the business works out. At the end of the day, Marshall, you're probably saying, Marshall, you've just listed like 8 players the Giants could trade. Well, yeah, I did. Why? Because when you're 2-6, almost everybody on your roster is available for a trade. It's not just the 2-6 Giants that are going through this drill and dance. It's every team. And I would take and make calls on every player on this roster, except for 97 and 78. And there's a lot of players I like on this roster. Love 58. I love a lot of players on this team. But when you're 2-6, you can almost trade anybody. Do you think the Giants make another trade? We're going to bounce on out of here after this question. Does Big Blue and Joe Shane make another trade? Y for yes, N for no. And remember, you can follow me over on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. Because if the Giants make a trade, the first place you will hear about it is on my Twitter. Remember, subscribe. Join us not tomorrow, excuse me. Join us in a couple of hours for our live coverage of the NFL trade deadline.